Big publishers eject too soon from live service titles, says Warframe boss. This is a VGC article from... Where's the byline? There it is. Jordan Midler. Digital Extreme CEO Steven Sinclair has said that game companies must have more faith in live service projects, even if they struggle at launch. In an interview with VGC, Sinclair lamented the trend of large companies in the live service space abandoning titles too quickly and following launch stumbles. Quote, they think the release is make or break, and it's not. They have a financial way to be persistent, and they never do it, Sinclair said. It comes out, doesn't work, and they throw it away. He added, quote, isn't that a shame when you put so many years of your life into iterating on those systems or building technology or building the state of a community, and because the operating costs are high, you get terrified when you see the numbers drop and you leave. We've seen this with amazing releases that I think have massive potential, and I think they eject too soon. High-profile live service titles that have shut down in recent years include EA's Knockout City, which lasted just over 2 years, Smilegate's Crossfire X, which lasted just over 1 year, Platinum Games' Babylon Fall, which lasted 11 months. That one deserved it. That one deserved it. And EA's Anthem, which was closed after 2 years despite being a full-priced game. Digital Extreme's Warframe was an early entrant into the modern live service space when it was first released in 2013. Now, a decade later, the game has spawned a yearly convention and regularly receives new content updates. The game's next big update, Warframe 1999, is coming this year.
Pretty accurate.
He has a point. I think games such as Marvel's Avengers, Anthem, these are games that were ejected from too quickly. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League is going to follow that trend as well. I think Suicide Squad just didn't come out as a very good game. I full on believe Avengers could have been phenomenal if they had given it more time. That game had fun. There was fun to be had in that game. And if they had just supported it the way they should have, and if that team... They picked the wrong team for that game.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, they just really did. But I also feel that way about Anthem. Anthem probably could have had a life and survived and been something special if EA had not pulled the plug so quickly.
Redfall is also one in this list. Making a game studio that doesn't make those games.
Yeah.
It's because, that's the thing. While he does have a point, I feel like the core issue is the kind of...
You can't make game dev studios who aren't experts in this make these types of games.
And it comes from the fact that they see dollar signs, these, big heads at studios, and they think they can capitalize off of it.
Yeah.
And when you look at it from that perspective, you're just not going to be as successful as something that comes from the heart.
Now, but it's also a double-edged sword on who is delivering this message.
Yeah.
I think, of course, Warframe is one of the most successful live service games in the market right now, right? And it does it quietly. Warframe is really, really good to its fan base. Its fans love it, and it gets more and more fans every year, which is great. I've tried Warframe a couple of times. I recognize it as a quality game, not for me personally, so I move along, right? But very impressive what they're able to do, especially because it's free to play, and all of the content and the way they've been able to iterate and continue to add value to that game. Very impressive, right? So definitely that's the type of guy who says, hey, we doubled down because they weren't the most popular thing at launch. And, their popularity, what popularity they had at launch faded. And then we doubled down, we committed, and we got it back. And now we're popping. So you are the guy to deliver that message, right? But I also believe you speak from a place of privilege. One being... You were at launch of the PlayStation 4, so there was not a whole lot to play during that time on the PlayStation 4, specifically because there was no cross-really platform play between 3 and 4. PlayStation 4 was had a huge start, right? Great opening sales for the PlayStation 4, so your player base was massive, and you were one of the first into the live service space. We didn't understand what Warframe was or what they were trying to do when it launched, And over time, we figured it out and went, oh, that's how you do it. You're speaking from a place of privilege because now the market is crowded and now it is hard to make noise. And now the general perception on live service is that this isn't good. This is a bad thing. He's not wrong. There are games like Anthem, like Avengers, like Knockout City that were shut down too soon. He's not wrong. But at the same time, a lot of these big publishers, like you're saying, Connor, have made games or have forced studios to make these games, and these aren't the type of games they should be making. Rocksteady should not be making a live service game. BioWare probably shouldn't be making a live service game, even though I think they could have salvaged Anthem. Eidos Montreal should not be making a live service game, even though I do think they could have salvaged Avengers. Is that the right team?
Is it
Crystal Dynamics?
Yeah.
Crystal Dynamics should not be making a live service game, even though I believe they should have. They could have salvaged that game, right? And now we turn our attention to Firewalk Studios in Concord.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's a game that clearly has quality, but that could be, that can make a lot more sense with what he's saying.
Yes.
Because we know it's a quality game, like at the core of it.
But we also know player numbers are not going to be super high at launch.
Yeah, and a lot of the things I think are going to have to be rolled out as the game continues on in its life cycle.
Yeah.
I'm afraid they don't have a lot of the sauce up front. And, for that kind of game, they really need to, or they need to have support going forward. And everything we know about it is that Sony's kind of, doesn't really have expectations. So we don't know what their expectations are for Concord. And so this could be a case where, they just go on for maybe 6 months.
There was a quote from Herman Holst saying that Concord could become PlayStation's next biggest IP and surpassing Horizon. Ambitious. I think if those are your expectations are too high.
Yeah.
For Concord to be successful, PlayStation needs to commit. And they need to double down. And I don't think they will. I don't think they will. Now, I don't know what lessons they've learned from Helldivers 2, if they've learned lessons from Helldivers 2. But if I were to guess, they're probably going to focus all their funding towards that. And that's unfortunate because this studio was formed to make Concord. Yeah. And you and I played the beta this last weekend. We talked about it on the Piggy Bank. There is a breakout impressions / review of the Concord beta live on the YouTube channel right now, youtube.com/@TwoPennyGames. So make sure you go click on that, watch that to get our full opinions on that game. But we're pretty up on it after the beta. But we also can read the room, and we know the internet is not up on this game, and it's probably not going to pull impressive numbers at launch. But it has the potential to over time. Concord is the game where PlayStation has to commit.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Marathon coming down the pipeline. Is that a PlayStation title? That's a PlayStation-owned title.
That's a Bungie PlayStation title.
So with something like that, it makes me think that they want to get in. They obviously want to get into the live service game space.
Yes.
Concord's part of that. Marathon is part of that. And Helldivers 2.
For a long time, they were like, we're going to do like 12 plus live service games. They've brought that down to 6.
Which, when you do something like that, you would think, well, okay, maybe these games are going to get a lot of focused support because PlayStation has become known as the single-player console. A lot of their big single-player games. You can't, in this day and age, sustain that. Yeah. It can't just be that.
Yeah.
And so it'd be extremely foolish if they do what I forgot his name all of a sudden.
Let me find it here. Steve Sinclair.
Steve Sinclair. We'll see how much his word rings true when those games start getting rolled out and PlayStation's reaction to them. Especially with Concord, due to the fact it's not going to do good numbers day one. Unless we have a Helldiver situation where it exceeds expectations.
I promise you we won't.
Well, Helldiver's expectation in the sense that it goes over what they thought it would do.
Yeah.
Not blow up the same level that did. I hope they do well because these people made a good game.
They did. And,
I'm sure.
And they're a new studio and they should be given, they should have the chance, right? They should be allowed to do something like this, right?
Yeah, and going back to Marathon, Bungie, they were kind of throwing some shade. I believe, who was that? Someone in Sony's higher-ups. I think it was the replacement CEO when Jim Ryan was leaving.
Yeah.
And he said something about how, like, Destiny wasn't doing what they wanted it to do. Do you remember that story?
I don't know this quote that you're talking about.
I remember he basically insulted the Destiny team because of like their last DLC not being well received.
The Lightfall.
Yeah. There were some insults, not insults, but
It didn't meet expectations,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's a secret. It's not. Lightfall did not meet expectations. They have made that up with the final shape.
Yeah, but I can't remember what was said at the time. But it basically seemed to just disregard what they had done up to that point and just focused on them as a whole, based off one DLC that didn't do well. I'll have to look those comments up again later. Point is, their position on live service games is very tenable from how they've talked about it. Even if they do say things like it's going to be the next big IP, even going over Horizon, those are just words.
Those are just words.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I'm hoping PlayStation is doing. And I hope that they're looking at the landscape, taking notes, and learning the right lessons here. I hope the ones that are in the can, or the ones that have been reached a certain level of development, they're like, hey, we can't do anything about these. We got to get them out the door. We've invested too much already. Helldivers 2 was an example of that. Concord is an example of that right now, and Marathon will be an example of that right now. There's something else we're missing on this list that I don't remember because there's so many of these games that come out, right? Here's what my hope is. We know Last of Us multiplayer canceled. It would have caused too much strain on Naughty Dog, and that's not what they want to make, right? We know there was a Spider-Man multiplayer game canceled before it got too deep into production, right?
Yeah.
Also, a studio, that's not really what they do. They've done multiplayer in the past, and they've had various levels of success with it, but it's not what they're known for, right? Here's what I'm hoping, all right? PlayStation has gone to the effort to create Haven Studios, to create Firewalk Studios, to create studios with a team whose expertise is in multiplayer, to have a weird acquisition / partnership with Bungie, right? Their track record speaks for itself, right? In terms of what multiplayer does, right? Here's what I'm hoping, is that their perspective is, okay, fuck the widespread live service goals. Let's focus in on what our studios are good at and what they're good for and what they're known for, and have them do that. Naughty Dog, we would have loved for that Last of Us multiplayer to take off. Man, we spent a lot of money on that. That sucks, right? So layoffs happen, It
does.
Insomniac, your little Spider-Man thing, it's not coming together. We want to get Spider-Man 2 out the door. We're working on Wolverine and Ratchet and Venom and whatever else is coming down the pipeline via Insomniac, right? So let's have you focus on those things. Let's make those things great. Santa Monica Studios, you keep making God of Wars out your ass, right? Let's do that so that we can appease our base, so that we can make our base happy, right? So we're still getting Last of Us's, we're still getting God of Wars, we're still getting Spider-Mans, et cetera, the list goes on, right? We still got Death Stranding coming down the pipeline next year as well. So the single-player thing, we've got it covered still. The teams you love are still making the games you want them to make. Now, let's look at what... I can't remember the name of the Helldivers 2 studio. Look it up real quick. These guys have a hit on their hands. That's fantastic. Let's double down, give them the support they need. Let's use all this cachet and this money that we got from Helldivers 2 to reinvest it back into the studio and get them doing what they want to do, their dreams and aspirations that they never thought they could do with this game. Let's get them to get there, right? Everybody likes to make fun of Helldivers 2 of how it fell off now because the player count is lower, yada, yada, yada. That was going to happen regardless. That's what happens when a game doesn't have any huge major updates in 3 months. Your player counts drop. It just happens, right? I guarantee you in the next, I want to say 6 months, but definitely in the next calendar year, we're going to get an announcement of a big Helldivers 2 expansion. Something is coming down the pipeline, right?
Remember, they didn't expect it to be as big, so they weren't raring to go bigger than they were. They changed their plans.
Exactly. Plans have changed, then they're escalating, right? So Helldivers 2, I guarantee you, within the next calendar year, will be thought of as, premier PlayStation multiplayer title, right? Concord, we're going to have a slow start, and we're going to slow burn it. Let's just listen to feedback, let's do what we have to do, and let's commit to this Marathon and whatever Haven is doing and get all these games up to where they need to be and commit so that we can build a multiplayer base. PlayStation, you lack a multiplayer base right now. You've got some examples of multiplayer being a desire on PlayStation. Call of Duty has been successful on PlayStation for years. Rainbow Six Siege is successful on PlayStation. Overwatch is successful on PlayStation. There's examples here. Helldivers 2 is now your prime example of this. There is a desire for PlayStation gamers to be able to play together, right? So instead of panicking when Concord comes out and their numbers flop, commit. Double down. Say, we believe in this team. We believe in this game. We're going to commit and keep pushing things forward. You're going to keep seeing Concord over and over again for the next couple of years to come.
Ideally.
Mm-hmm. Again, this is such a volatile industry right now that can they even commit or do this and commit to this? Well, if they're doing their business right, hopefully they can.
Arrowhead Game Studios.
Thank you. Arrowhead. Yeah. And I would hope sort of the extra capital that you got off of Helldivers 2 that you weren't expecting allows you to, one, keep Arrowhead happy with your publishing deal that you have with them, because they don't own Arrowhead, but they own Helldivers as an IP. So hopefully you can kind of keep both parties happy with that extra capital that you ran into and get some more rotating there. You've still got Destiny 2 doing its thing, making money, right? And then whatever's happening, and then I'm going to go ahead and assume Marathon is going to be great. It's Bungie.
Yeah.
They haven't really missed yet. Not really, you know? So yeah, I'm of the belief, and I'm also of the belief that Naughty Dog's next game is coming sooner than usual. I have an idea that it feels like they want to get a game out.
Yeah.
You know, from what we've heard from Neil Druckmann and the team and stuff like that, they are hungry to get a game out. It's been a while, you know, and they've had to start over. So yeah, I think PlayStation is in an interesting space. And when we talk about these live service games, they are, I think, primed to find the most long-term success if they play their cards right. That's the tricky part.
I mean, my last thing I'll say, yeah, they got a lot of good money from Helldivers 2, surprise money. But remember, we're dealing with an industry that lays off people like nobody else, closes studios all the time.
You're right.
It's very reasonable for them to believe that they're just going to pocket that money. They saw the success it had, and they don't think long-term. They think about filling their own pockets.
You're 100% correct. You are 1,000% correct.
I hope I'm, functionally wrong, and they don't just start dishing deal, but
yeah, I hope that is not the reality we live in, but that those are
up until now, it's been
those are realistic expectations.
Yeah.
So there are ways out of this. There are ways to see success here.